What's up, everybody? Welcome to the CanesInSight podcast powered by Anishar and Levine Accident Attorneys. We got a commitment, the seventh commitment of the class. Defensive back Timothy Merritt out of Birmingham, Alabama. High three-star SEC schools all over him. Big riser, will end up as a blue chip player. Very, very big get for the Miami Hurricanes. We will break that down. And it is a name that you heard first on the CanesInsight podcast and the CanesInsight forums. Pete, pull up that post from the bank back over a month ago. We talked about Timothy Merritt, also talked about him before that on the Canes Connection call for Canes Connection members. Sign up using promo code CIS at canesconnection.com if you want access to those calls to hear stuff like this first, 20% off the first month. But that's what we try to do, try to give you names as they come on the board. Tim Merritt was a name that came on the board, rose very quickly. Chevis Jackson, a Mobile, Alabama native, very plugged into that area, really laser focused on Tim Merritt and developed a relationship, put a high grade on him. Staff put a high grade on him. He was a priority, and they were able to land him in this class coming off his official visit. Pete, get in here. You know, this player, Parker High School, Birmingham, Alabama, 37th ranked corner on the composite, high three-star, pushing that four-star ranking. Tennessee, Auburn, Arkansas in the mix. This is an area where Miami's been recruiting more lately, Pete. I know you're familiar with it from your time as an agent. You worked with several players from that area. What can you tell us about Alabama players and their makeup?
Well, typically, look, in today's era, it's so important to find the right character fits for your roster. Mario's obviously focused on that big time. And in my experiences, I don't know this kid personally, obviously, but these guys from the area typically tend to be all about ball, all about football. I don't care so much about the social media stuff and things of that nature. And look, Birmingham's not a honky donk town, right? I mean, there's stuff going on in Birmingham, right? So I think the transition there coming to Miami, we saw Mike Jackson recently, but it's a pretty, I think it should be a pretty good transition for him down here in Miami.
Yeah, look, Miami last year going into Mobile, Alabama, getting Cole McConaughey, getting Bobby Pruitt, guys who had big roles on the defense as true freshmen in the spring, look to be guys that can play early, look like hits. So Miami is very fond of that area. I mentioned Michael Jackson from Birmingham, Alabama, actually went to the same high school as Tim Merritt before transferring. Big corner, kind of similar body type wise. Someone who ended up going to Miami, really took some time to cook, but once he was fully developed, once he got into that starting lineup, he was an impact player for the Hurricanes, part of Miami's really, really good pass defenses in that era. Top 10 pass defenses, he was a big part of that. Goes to the NFL, bounces around, finds his home with the Seattle Seahawks. Now he's about to get another contract in the pros. So Mike Jackson comparison is easy to make. Tim Merritt is somebody who, talking to coaches, and he's watched the film and everything, 6'2", 6'1 and a half, 185, wiry, strong basketball player, very athletic in that regard. Played corner as a sophomore, played safety as a junior, also played some nickel. He will be back to playing corner full-time as a senior. Miami loves his versatility, his twitch, his football IQ. Again, you can see the ability to diagnose quick, close distance in a hurry all over his tape. He plays fast because he thinks fast and he can accelerate. Miami likes him at corner, like I said, but they can see him as a safety. He can play nickel. You think of Jadis Richard from Vanderbilt, transferred to Miami. Similar kind of profile, similar size, played corner and safety in high school, goes to Vanderbilt, transfers to Miami as a safety, nickel, doing different things for Miami's defense last year, versatile piece. I think Merritt profile similar to Richard, but is a more highly recruited player and may have more upside.
And a lot of times with these longer, taller, stronger corners, that physicality doesn't come until later in a couple years into college maybe, but it's there already with Merritt. And again, you see him all over the place on this tape. And I'm going to play his sophomore stuff now where he was playing more corner, but that physicality is a willing tackler, which at that age as a young defensive back is not very common.
Yeah, I love the sophomore film. I actually think the sophomore film is more interesting than this junior film because he really looks comfortable at corner. You hope the speed will translate and he'll be able to do that. He does have a track background, so speed, from what I'm told talking to Miami, they think he can run plenty. They are looking to add speed at corner, so fits in there. Miami really needs to hit a home run with this cornerback class. It's a position they have not recruited well. Adai really did not do a great job recruiting corners. It had been a struggle before then to recruit corners, the whole thing with Rumpf, and then you get T-Rob for a year, et cetera. So corner's been a problematic position at Miami for a while in terms of recruiting. And think of the last guy that really stuck around and played a lot. It probably would be Mike Jackson, although Tyree Stevenson looks like he'll change that this year for the Canes with what he's done for Chicago. But overall, high school corner recruiting has been a big, big problem for the Canes, and they're hoping to turn around this class. DJ Pickett from Zephyr Hills, Florida, top 10 player in the country, 6'5", 10.5 speed. He's high on the list, as you could imagine. Miami legacy, somebody who I think if Miami has a good season, it's going to be tough to beat for DJ Pickett. And then Ben Hanks, who I saw this weekend for Team Raw at corner, long, smooth, 4.49 on the lasers, very, very talented player, a 4-star player who I think is probably closer to a 5-star talent-wise, the best player in South Florida from what I could see. Really the only weakness is he needs to put on weight. So those are big-time targets, but you also need to get high upside guys that can start for you and play big roles. This guy's exactly that type of player. There's other names in the mix. I think 4 or 5 corners for this class makes sense, and this is a very big piece for that room.
And D, obviously, they've hosted some big visitors the last couple weekends for official visits. Does this signal a sign of things to come for the 2025 class?
Absolutely. And we're going to talk about this in a little more detail in the Canes Insight Daily podcast. As you know, we come to you every single day. So please like and subscribe to the podcast because we are coming every day, and we will talk about how this commitment may lead to some other names that Miami has traction with. But yes, talking to people, this is the sense that this is the first of what could be several in a row. But it's a big one because of the position and because of the location. It's one thing to go to Alabama and get somebody that nobody wants, but you're fighting with SEC schools that have won a lot of games. I mean, look at what Tennessee has done. They're probably going to have a top 5 pick this year with James Pierce. They've won a lot of games. So, beat those schools on enemy territory, to me, is very big. And you're starting to see a trend of getting guys from big cities in Alabama who may like the city life, don't want to necessarily stay in state and go to a smaller town, but rather go to another city in Miami, between Mobile, Birmingham, places like that. That could be a sweet spot for the Miami Hurricanes going forward. In Alabama, routinely, when I go through the draft and I go through where everybody's from, obviously Florida is always going to be the top in that category, has been for the last few years, has been for really decade, it feels like, or more. But Alabama, for its size, produces a lot of players and a lot of high-impact players, and they do not always go to Alabama or Auburn. Look at Josh Allen, who went to Kentucky, one of the best pass rushers in the league in terms of sacks. He plays for the Jacksonville Jaguars, Alabama guy. There's a lot of guys like that, particularly the pass rushers, man. There's a lot of pass rushers that got out of Alabama, in terms of Justin Tuck, OCU Manura. These are way back names, but it happens frequently when you look at the draft list. You're hoping that Merritt, as a defensive back, is kind of like a Mike Jackson we talked about earlier, who in retrospect could have played for Alabama or Auburn, but Miami was able to sneak in and get the player. So a lot to be excited about, in my opinion, with Tim Merritt. And we had a very good breakdown of his game. If you're not on the CanesInsight.com forums, you want to sign up. They are free, 6.9 million posts and counting. And one of the cool things is you get all the free content that we provide. You get the message boards with millions and millions of posts. And there are experts on the message board, position coaches, high school coaches, guys who, trainers, guys that really understand the nuances of the game. Menmon is as good as it gets when it comes to breaking down corners, a board legend. And he had a very long, very detailed post on Timothy Merritt. Pete's pulling it up on here.
Yeah, I've had it up for a couple minutes here.
Yeah, so you want to check out that post and posts like that on the CanesInsight.com forums. Really great stuff, talking about his ability to diagnose, his ability to cover ground. Simple passes that would otherwise be completions are more difficult because of his length, because of his ability to react quickly and make a play at the catch point with long arms. So excited about Tim Merritt, 7th commit in the class. Only 3-star in the class, I believe, right now, but he's going to be rising, I believe, and get into that 4-star range. So a lot to be excited about with the Hurricanes. I should say TK Mo. I think I figured out his name pronunciation. TK Mo, the guard. He's a 3-star as well, but really 4-star heavy class. Tim Merritt, high 3-star. I expect him to be a blue chip player by the end of the cycle. And I expect Miami to add several more blue chip players before this month is done.
Yeah, and I think both of those guys will definitely get a bump up in the ratings. The measurables in the film are neither of those are 3-star material in my opinion. So I think as the summer goes on here and the ratings get updated, would be surprised if both of those guys didn't end up as 4 stars.
Yeah, and look, this guy's 89. That's right there on that border. Not that it matters too much, but you like to see names rise in the rankings because the way the recruiting services are now, they're getting out and seeing these kids. Tim Merritt plays with Naeem Offord, who's a top 10 corner in the country, committed to Ohio State. So there's a lot of eyeballs on him. So I expect the offers to keep pumping in for him. As people see him, you want him to have a big year. You want him to keep climbing. And I think Miami is betting that this is a name that's going to be a lot hotter by the end of the season than it is now. And they need to make sure they hold on to him. You saw Kevin Riley last year go to Alabama at the last minute. Miami was able to hold on to Pruitt and McConaughey. So you miss all the shots you don't take. Miami wants to have a presence in Alabama, and they're not going to be afraid to go after the top guys and battle with the SEC.
Yep. Remember, keep it locked on CanesInSight. Should be an exciting month of recruiting. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and we will be here all week with CanesInSight Daily.
Go Canes.